presentation regarding these phases and steps. So here's where I'm going to start with my. Give me a second. All right. Okay. Hi. Can everyone hear me? Testing.
Yeah, I hear you.
All right. My name is Rick. Uh, yeah, I'm L1 for 8 years. It's been quite some times ago. Yeah. Then I'm from Malaysia, Penang. Uh, when I first get my L1 certified, this is what the picture I got from, which is I top it in the GP Manila when I got the L1. All right. So here's my introduction. I will begin with my slides. 5 phases in MTG, which is the beginning of phase, pre-combat, main phase, combat phase, post-combat main phase. Then we have the ending phase. This phase consists will have some of the step that is involving towards this game, and this game of Magic the Gathering is involved basically more on these phases and steps, which is fundamental for the Magic the Gathering, which we enjoy and we are having fun for. For me, I've been having fun for like 20 years already. Yeah. So here I begin with beginning of phases. Yeah. So what do we have beginning of phases when we starting to think about the beginning of phases would be uh yep, we will have first we will start with the untapped steps, which is under the CR 502. From the start for it, we will be having like phases that is happening, which is phase out, phase in, all the cards which is phase in, which it has been gone for quite some time, but recently it came back. As everybody you can know, this is the thing that it came back from. Can you see this? Have free master of time. Yes. Mm, it works from your part of your opponent now, most of the time, which is you get to face out your opponent creatures. They will be bringing in during this phase. Yes. So what happens the first thing of the under step is this will be happening the phasing. All right, here we go. Next, after that, we will be having the active player will untap all the things they control. So basically, most of this time we will have cards like the Sigborn Muse. Yeah, this is the one that overrides just the active players that is going to untap. Makes the other player who control the Sigborn Muse, they will make the untaps too. This will be for the EDH games, which is frequently now, as you know, we are on the COVID-19, so most of the people are actually lean towards EDH communities because the competitive events are actually faded out. Yeah, so will be the things that we will be going through. Yep. Then we have no priorities and spell will be cast during this phase. As you can see, this phase is actually involved a lot of just not happening things. Means yes, certain cards that actually makes this phase have something to happen, but anything that it does in this phase, usually it will go to the upkeep. Example, you can see from this card. It says whenever it becomes untapped. But when you pay, you get to pay and trigger this not in the beginning of it. You only get on the beginning of upkeep. It's not on the untapped stats. But this usually, from what we know, when it untaps, it should be triggering during the untapped stat, but it can't because due to we have this CR 502.3. All right, so we'll proceed to the next one, which is beginning of phase. This is upkeep stats. So abilities that is triggering the earlier there, it will be triggered here too at the beginning of upkeep. So what things that usually happen in these steps? Examples like we have this Phyrexian Arena. During upkeep, you just draw a card. This is the one that will be triggering when you enter into this upkeep steps. Then, as usual, active player gets to cast things during after the triggers has been triggered. So, do I have you guys here? I would like to ask something. Hello?
Go ahead and ask the question, man. Just go ahead and ask the question.
All right, sure, yeah.
And then people can just type in their answers.
Cool. All right. So, what happens when there is two Tefris? Means the Time Masters. Can I know that if there is simultaneously facing out each of them, then we will usually have something that is the new cards. If you remember, is coming back in Double Master. We have another like face card obsolete, if I'm not mistaken. So imagine obsolete has been returned, then it will becomes untapped, right? So what is will be the impact that is actually will be having? How does it come in? How does it come out? Can I have anybody to answer this? As I just now I did explain. So let's say one is coming into the face out, one is coming into the face in. So does it actually how the application of the facing is going to work? Can I have anybody to answer me, please?
There are some people typing in, so let's
Yeah,
wait for their answers. So we're highly encouraging everyone to type in their response. And
normal ETB. Will there be a normal ETB from faces facing a creature? Are you sure there will be a ETB for facing in and facing out? Yeah, facing don't have actually any ETB that will be triggering for this. Yeah, it's because facing is just make things that is not exist for that particular moment, and it will be back during its owner's upkeep. Sorry, the controller. My bad. So let's say you face out a creature that is being controlled. Let's say if the triggers is controlled, like we have like a threaten that is going to at the end of the turn, yeah, it will go back to the owner instead. Yeah. That is what I read from the CRs. So I think there is no other people that is going to type this. Any reply? So I proceed. Okay, we have draw steps. So from draw steps, what will happen during the first thing that is, okay, I have somebody that's typing. Okay. First thing that's going to happen at the draw steps, you will be just draw the card first. Yeah, it's under the CR 504.1. Then only players will be getting their ability triggers at the draw steps upkeep. Sorry, not my bad. It's not upkeep. It's the draw steps. Yeah, abilities are triggered during the draw steps. So what does this implication usually means? It has means to one particular card that everybody know. Can I have cards that usually that is complicated during these steps? Can I have anyone to answer me? All right, Ben, you got it right. One of them. Yes. Have three puzzle box. That's one of the thing, but that is not as complicated. Mirror skull. It's a trigger. So, all right. Ouch. So again, you are pushing it. That card is really something. It's very complicated too. All right. I'll show you guys what is it. 7, right? Library. That's the card I'm talking about. All right. As you can see, the implication in the EDH and those old days, people will set aside on the draw steps. Means that they will actually pick up one card and two cards from 7 library. So this is actually not, they are actually not doing like scry or thing. They actually draw the card, but they have to separate out these 2 cards and 1 card at their draw steps to get the cards they want. So I believe that most of the people know how the 7 library works. If you don't know, can just feel free to message me why this thing is actually on shortcuts. People will have draw up to 1 card, then will draw the 2 cards. So most of the time, people just shortcut to I get the 3 cards. Yeah, and maybe I put back 1 or 2, and I pay the 4 life for the additional ones. Okay, here after the triggers, as usual, you get to cast your spells, abilities, which is you get an implication like people want to cast sudden impact. Yeah, this is very famous thing that is happening during the days. I remember like the Blu-ray draw cards. If you all play long enough, I think you do believe there's a standard that evolved during this era that we have sudden impact that's caused you to draw out like Howling Mice, the Ebony Out. If you all have just played quite some time ago, yeah, this is the test step that people want to do this sudden impact thing. All right. So now I'm going to move to pre-combat main phase. Right here, pre-combat main phase has no steps. That is one of the things that is have to take note. This is under the CR 505.2. All right. There's only one main phase for the pre-combat main phase, which means all those triggers for the pre-combat main phase will be happen here only. It won't be happening at your post-combat main phase. So what's the thing that is usually standards usually currently very popular need? Everybody know this. We will usually call it as ECD. Come on, Greenshine, seriously, in standard? I do believe this ECD is one of the main plays right now in standard. If you are playing white and not aggro, yeah, it's ECD. So a lot of people that I met and a lot of those install people thought that the triggers of ECD actually happens on draw steps. Actually, I did highlighted to them that it's actually not happening at the draw steps. It's after your draw steps. It has this indication there on the wording. A lot of people just thought that, okay, now I will just let you draw the card and then I do something, you cannot flood this mana to your your main phase. But actually this actually happens all on the beginning of your pre-combat main phase. All right. So as a pre-combat main phase, the active player will just get to cast and play their lands as usual. The empty the stats is quite important because most of the time you get to do things that before your opponent does something on you, you will get it to use it first. For my own preference, that is usually happens in this priorities empty part will be discard. Usually, what happens is people will have some graveyard removal. If you have 7 mana, you get your Call the Herd by casting it. Whereas once it resolves, you're back to your priority. There's the empty step, you get to flash it back. Yeah, with 7 mana, you get to do this. This is the old days of Call the Herd. For now, I do believe that if we have a lot of mana, we have a same implication that is able to be applied right now is Uro. As long as you have a lot of cards in your graveyard, even the Scavenging Ooze is there, they can't actually remove your Uro. They have to let your Uro resolve everything. Make sure that your Uro steps correctly. Not to put the sacrifice first. You have to put the draw cards, then only will put the last trigger. Resolve is the sacrifice. Then the stat is empty, then only you get to return back your Uro. If you have like a lot of casting graveyards, they can't really remove with the scavenging ooze. They just have access mana just to remove a few, which is enough for you to get back your Uro. After this pre-combat main phase, we have to go to combat phase. So during combat phase, we have the beginning of combat steps. So to begin combat steps at the beginning of combat triggers. This usually happens when cards that is competitive play, which commonly we know right now is Legion Warboss. Yeah. So most of the time, people will have some tricks, which is they will always pass their priorities on the pre-combat main phase towards going to the combat steps. If they pass it back, yep, the Legion War Boss will trigger because once both people pass the priority, they'll proceed to the next step. Sorry, next phase. My bad. So after the triggers, then we have priorities to cast those abilities, spells, which is commonly known as this card will be coming in. If you all have been through competitive plays, you will know usually before combat, the attackers, this card is usually cast. That is happening usually in this phase. Alright. So after that, once they pass through these steps, they will go to the declare attacker steps. So during happening declare attacker steps, we have the active players declares, and this step can be skipped if there are no declared attackers. If there is no attackers declared, the declared blocker and combat damage steps will be skipped. This is because it's a shortcut that is, since there is no happening anything in combat, then once the active player declares that he has no attackers, the preceding two steps will be skipped. It will go towards end of combat. Okay, when declaring attacks, you just have to make sure what the criteria is met. Can I know from anybody that usually what the criteria that is usually met? Can I have anybody to answer? What things that is actually usually cards that actually block those declaring attackers from meeting its criteria? Can I have anybody to answer this? Sugaring your cards is very old. Okay. Uh, from my side, usually if it has haste and control presence since the beginning of turn, this this is part of the criteria. Means this creature can attack. So if it's haste, what cards we will be thinking of? Ball lightning, old school. Yep. Fate spinner. Yeah, if you take it up from its graveyard, the ability. Ghostly prison. I think I will get to you later. Is somewhere in between here too. Yeah, that is one of the thing too. Mm, Okay. Okay. Here is the active players. Here the checks. What's the criteria and everything. So I'll show you guys on this card. This is one of the criteria that you need to know too. Very old school. I used to play this card in EDH. All right, guys. I will have a 5 minute break. Beginning to later steps. After the 5 minute break starts now. That's 5 minutes. Do I have anybody back already? Anybody's ready?
Let's wait for the others.
Yep. Hi, Jay.
Yeah, Rick, you can go ahead and proceed with your presentation.
All right. Got it. Okay. Just recap, which is was in declare attacker steps, and now I'll be proceeding after declare attackers steps, which is actually declare attacker steps haven't finished. We still will have a bit of it. Yeah. Uh, which is after we satisfy all the restrictions. We have things like banding. Yeah. So can anybody know here? Anybody is not familiar with bandings, which is uh, cards like these. Yep, it's for all papers. Bandings. All right. Actually, we have a CR regarding banding is basically something. Sorry. Is that actually bandings in the CR 548? It has the criteria that you attack it with the bending creatures, then it shares the blockers, means that if one creature is blocking one of the bending creature, it's considered as block too. Yeah. However, that it has a slight advantages when it comes to dealing the combat damage. When it is there's a rules that is especially for bendings to make up during the combat damage, which is will get to you after this all. I will have a slide that's going through later that will have a bit of relation with bendings. After it's chosen at back to there will be once it's all the fulfilling cost is paid from any optionals, then they have to the total cost at that, which is to get back to your question on example that cost we have to pay is like the ghostly prisons, things like that. Yeah. More old school, we will be knowing this as propaganda rather than ghostly prison. But it used to be old days. They have this is a functional reprint from the old days. Then when it's attacking, you'll be tapping those non-vigilant creatures as attackers. And they'll be choosing it instead of like if it's a vigilance creature. Usually they will put on the red zone to indicate this is actually is attacking, rather than say I attack with this. It's very confusing sometimes. So now it's best that we have a playmat that has a declare attacker step, which is we can push it onto the red zone with your vigilance creature. So it's have a very clear cut. Yeah, I do have this playmat somewhere in my playmat watch. Yeah. So after that, it will be trigger off attackers. Usually we have cards like this. After the conditions are fulfilled, your checks. Then this is the card that usually triggers during attackers. All right. The active player get to cast instant spells flash. All right. I'd like to get back to you all guys regarding these cards coming. Can you guess that any cards that is going to break the combat phase for the declared attacker steps? There's only like one card in MTG that is breaking this. Can I have anyone to answer me regarding this? What card actually break these rules of declared attackers after the attacker has been attacked? Yep, when you get to cast spell, it breaks the rule. Vinota don't break rule. It goes back to the just now what the Robert the Rich does. It's a trigger after Marashi. I have no idea what I don't have no idea what is that actually. Maybe I'll Google it later. All right. Sure. What is it? Anybody see this? This card really breaks the rules. And there's a particular CR that has actually mentioned this card. This is one of the cards the MTG that actually breaks the rules. It gives the player to reselect the attackers. Yep, it's the new commander. Okay, questions. If the reseller players has a propaganda, uh, right. Okay, once it's reselect, it actually breaks the rules. So it's no longer actually you need to pay for the propaganda, from my understanding. Means usually all the conditions already fulfilled. You when you want to attack one of the particular players, and then once you reselect it, this card actually breaks the rules. Then we have declare blocker steps. Usually, defending player declares the blocker. When it's declaring the blockers, there is no windows is actually allowed for you to actually wait as long when he's entered the declare blocker step, he gets to block first. Then only that after that you get to do your instant and sorcery. But during here, usually happens is once they block, he has the active player declares how's the A B C D. If you know the blockers A B C, which is the A will be the first one, then B will be the second one. It will go on and on until the later damage is dealt. Uh, there is indication that actually the players actually can just put all damage in one particular place, so he don't need actually to go towards the rest of the creatures too. Yeah, they have the option of doing that. You can see this all the CRs that is happening during the declare blockers. So yeah, here you comes during this moment you get to actually get to cast all the declare triggers everything on during this steps. Is this. It triggers when it becomes blocked. Yeah. This is the usual cards that I can find during my old school days. Yeah. It's a fun card. So you get to draw 3 cards when you block it. Yes, a good indication that if actually after it blocks, you can remove it from combat, you get the free 3 cards. Okay. So as usual, I say the castings, flash, whatever you want during this step, which is maybe you want to after the blockers you want to cast like things like giant growth or the combat tricks, basically. Still at declare blocker steps. Am I moving too fast? If am I moving too fast, do let me know. All right. Spell abilities. Then we have a creature that's blocking the active player will be putting placement orders of the damage. That's what I just now I mentioned. So at the combat damage step. All right. Here's the thing. We have first strike damage. This is commonly asked during a lot of those new players. They tend to want to actually make some tricks on these steps. All right, you will usually hear that one new player will just ask, what happened that after the first strike combat damage, I give the creature first strike. What's the indication is going to happen? Does it means that I give him first strike, he cannot deal the normal combat damage? As you know that if you read through all the CRs, and I believe most of you are actually play long enough, or even there's a couple of level 2 judges here too, will be really able to understand this step. But there's a lot of this question running here around when EDH player ask me. Yeah, they'll tell me, hey, what happened that during it after the first strike steps they give first strike. So does it mean that it prevents off the damage? No, that's not true. It means that if you skip the first strike damage, you will deal the normal combat damage still. So we have things like Samut. It's just an indication of the first strike and double strike things. Then first the enemy player announce the attacking creature assigned combat damage. Defending player house the blocking damage. This goes to the turn-based stacks. Second order damage should be assigned. Simultaneously, it does not use stacks too, so nobody have a chance to actually cast spell in between if it's they agree to go through the steps. Like during the first strike damage, all the first strike are dealt damage simultaneously. Then if it's normal combat damage, all the normal combat damage creature that able to be dealt means the ones that didn't dealt damage on the first strikes, yeah, they will deal damage simultaneously too. Okay. Then after that, you will have these combat triggers will usually happen. Things like off-ramp Viper, yeah, this will be triggering the destroy creature and the draw to draw cards if it able to have trample to go through. So both of these triggers will happen. Yeah, if let's say you have you still have to deal later damage for Offrun Viper case because it's not a death touch. Even your trample still deals that it goes through. Maybe he gets a +5/+5 trample, but a 2/2 creature is blocking you, so to deal the 2 damage, only the 3 trample will go through. But both triggers will be happening in case that creatures is not died due because of certain methods to actually do it. Then active players will get the priorities to cast things after these triggers done as usual. All right. So we have somebody step in. Any questions? So we have end of combat steps. End of combat things will be triggering. Then what usually happens during end of combat is, yeah, the famous one we have is guys. The guys is triggers will be removed the creatures at the end of this. So basically, the tricks here is they use like end the turn or counter triggers to get the 4/4 tokens days. Basically, this step is like a clearing steps for the combats. So everything all as soon as this end, everything will be removed out of combat. So after the combat, we will go through the post-combat main phase. Here's usually if cards that actually allow you to actually gain a combat like here usually is something like the additional combat main phase. Then you will go to another step which is also under phase combat. Post combat main phase is like relentless assault cards of this. Usually it gives you an extra combat steps. Then usually this step usually happens on certain cards. Like Nahid, it only happens during this step for the triggers. It has to be pre-combat, post-combat main phase, post-combat main phase. Then, as usual, like what the normal main phase we have to be empty. You can cast those your sorcery spells. Yeah, now we're going for the ending phase and step. So most of the thing is usually triggers in this step. So as you know, currently our standard metas evolve with this step, a lot of them. Can I get a inside that anybody can answer me, that is what card is the most famous on this deck on current standard? Can I have anybody to answer me? That's very obvious. Yep. We have the famous card, Wilder's Reclamation. Everybody be flooding their manas, then triggers and triggers. Yep. Flood, flood, flood. Then usually this, everybody knows after these triggers, you know what card's gonna be cast during these steps so I don't need to show. Explosions. Alright. Here, okay, here we have going to the clearing up steps. Okay, usually the maximum hand size. Can I know what cards that usually that reduce? Do we have a lot of cards that actually reduce the maximum hand size? Do we? Can you recall something? The favorite thing during Odyssey? That's Jin Gitasian give you no maximum hand size. Alright. Has anyone remember this card? Yeah, Top Devourer, Z-Guard, old school. These are one of the few maximum hand size that is reduction during my time of playing Magic. Okay. That means everything is removed during this step, which is we have things like the giant groves. Okay, these will check the state-based effects. Basically, during this step of the it's called clearing up, nobody can cast spell with you. But can I know that what usually happens on this step that actually allowing things happens? Can I have a minute answer? What circumstances that actually allows things to be happen during this step? It says that nobody gets to. Yep. No, business research, no really. I think Dennis X got it right. Yep. We have things like Madness, which is famously is known like the Fury Temper. End of step, I have too many cards. I just discard. That goes to your face. Then, if there's a stat, then everybody gets to cast it and activate their spells. After, when there's anything that's happened on this step, like the Madness. So this Madness actually also a mechanic that actually to say that actually breaks the normal rules. Okay, yeah, that's it. Can anybody have any questions? If you have any other complicated questions, is feel free to message me or PM me. What things you would like to share? Maybe my presentation is very say very stagnant because this is my first time presenting in online. I never tried before. This will be my first time for trying it. Do hope I do apologize that my presentation could be boring because I never know how to actually present online. I just got some tips on last week, which I tried to actually amend it, but I still preferred on my slides that is white and black, which is I don't really like have those features because I studied during my days of doing assignment. I was told that try not to make it too fancy. Clean up, discard, machine, shucks. Need to check what is Sharks Rider. Sharks Rider. Oh, sure. Sorry. I think I need to end my.
Hello?
Hello, yes.
Are you done with your presentation yet?
Yeah. I've done. I've done.
Okay. So with that, I would like to first thank Rick for doing his presentation, and I'm asking everyone to check on the feedback form. Okay. Let's all do a quick feedback for Rick so he can improve. And I think that's what we do, right? We are judges and we're here to help everyone improve. So let's do that for Rick. And we will be having our next presenter in a few. And that would be Sugeng Hartawan, who will be presenting about layers. And I'll be asking Rick to join me on the feed for a quick feedback. Thank you. I believe Sugeng is ready for his presentation. Sugeng?